So what happens when a marriage can be ended with just 3 words? Today, we're going to unpack the centuries-old legal argument behind one of the most debated topics in Islamic law, the triple talaq. Now, we're not here to take sides. We're just here to see exactly how the traditional case is built, piece by piece.
You've probably heard this phrase before, right? It's right at the heart of this huge legal question, one with really profound personal consequences. When a man says these words to his wife all at once, in one go, what does that actually mean?
Is it just a single revocable divorce, something that gives the couple a cooling off period to maybe reconcile? Or is it 3 final divorces all at once, making the split immediate and, well, pretty much irreversible? This one question is what it all boils down to. So, just so we're clear, our goal here isn't to pick a winner. It's to understand the architecture of the argument itself. We're going to follow the evidence laid out in one particular text that argues for the final triple divorce, just to see how a classical legal position like this gets constructed. So, let's dive in. Okay, so the source we're looking at starts with a really bold, really sweeping claim. It doesn't just start with one little piece of evidence. No, it kicks things off by saying there's been complete and total agreement on this for 1,400 years. And there it is. This is the absolute cornerstone of their entire argument. The position is that from the very beginning, we're talking the Prophet's own companions, all the way through the great legal thinkers and the major schools of law, there's been this one unified, unbroken consensus: 3 means 3. And to back this up, the text lays out a kind of chain of authority. You see on screen some of the heaviest hitters in Islamic scholarship across the centuries, and the source says all of them affirmed this consensus. The point is to show that from the 4th century of Islam to the 13th and even beyond, this view was just the standard.
Then the argument connects that deep history to right now. It points to all these major Islamic legal bodies all over the world, from Saudi Arabia and Egypt to the US and Australia, and says that their rulings, their fatwas, all line up with this very same long-standing position.
All right, so from that huge claim of historical agreement, the argument starts to zoom in a bit. The next layer of evidence focuses on the most foundational pillars of Sunni Islamic law, the 4 great schools of jurisprudence. And what the source says here is that the Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi'i, and Hanbali schools are completely unanimous on this. It claims that the core legal texts from each of these major traditions all come to the same conclusion. Say it 3 times, even at once, and it's counted as 3. The divorce is final.
So, after establishing the position of the major schools, the source goes back even further, to the generation that learned the religion straight from the Prophet Muhammad himself. We're talking about his companions, whose legal insights are considered incredibly important.
The key number here is 3. The source argues that for really prominent companions, like the early leaders Umar, Usman, and Ali, this number was like an absolute ceiling. They reportedly ruled that it didn't matter if a man said, "I divorce you 3 times, 100 times, or even 1,000 times at once." The legal effect was the same. It counted as 3, and that was that. Divorce finalized. And get this, it wasn't just 1 or 2 of them. To really drive the point home, the document lists over 15 of the Prophet's companions who are said to have given this exact same ruling. The message is clear. This wasn't some fringe opinion, it was the standard practice of the most important figures of that first generation. So here's the crucial pivot. The source has built its case from modern times, back to the schools of law, back to the companions. And now it takes the final step, arguing that this ruling isn't some later invention at all, but that it has direct precedent from the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad himself. To make this point, the text brings up several reports, or hadith. This one, from the super authoritative collection Sahih al-Bukhari, talks about a guy who issued a triple divorce. When the Prophet was asked if the couple could just get back together, his answer was a clear no. He laid out the rule for a final, irrevocable divorce. According to the source, by doing that, he was implicitly treating the triple divorce as valid and final. And the argument is strengthened with another story. A companion named Fatima bin Qais was given 3 divorces all at once. The Prophet didn't challenge the divorce itself. Instead, he immediately gave her instructions for her legally required waiting period, the iddah, which you only do after a final divorce. So his actions, the source argues, basically treated it as a done deal.
Now, if you're familiar with this topic at all, you might be thinking, wait a second, what about that famous hadith that seems to say the complete opposite, the one where 3 divorces were counted as 1? Well, the source anticipates this and they address it head on.
This is the key pivot in the entire argument. The text suggests that this hadith isn't some blanket rule that contradicts everything else. Instead, it was a specific ruling for a very specific situation, a divorce declared before the marriage was consummated. In that unique case, it's argued, 3 declarations were indeed counted as just 1.
And here is the heart of the rebuttal. The source claims that the very person who narrated that famous hadith, the companion Ibn Abbas, made this critical distinction himself. He reportedly ruled that if the divorce happened after consummation, then a triple divorce absolutely counted as 3. This totally reframes that 3 as 1 report, not as a contradiction, but as an exception to the rule.
So, let's just quickly recap the structure of how this argument is built. It's a layered approach, right? It starts big with a huge claim of consensus, then it drills down to the authority of the legal schools, goes further back in time to the first generation, and then all the way to the Prophet's era, all while taking on and reframing the main piece of counter-evidence.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If we take a step back from this specific issue, what does breaking down an argument like this really show us? Seeing how the evidence is layered, how precedent is built, and how counter-arguments are handled, it gives us a really powerful look into the mechanics of traditional legal reasoning, a system of thought that still shapes so many debates and rulings across the world today.